Now, with South Africans experiencing economic hardships due to rocketing fuel prices and high electricity tariffs, President Cyril Ramaphosa says that the country will only give support to Zimbabwe within its means. He was speaking at the opening session of the third South Africa-Zimbabwe BiNational Commission, which is currently underway in the capital, Harare. Zimbabwe is in dire economic situation at the moment following targeted sanctions by the EU and the United States. Although speculation is rife that the 5.6 billion rand National Railways of Zimbabwe deal will be on the agenda today, President Ramaphosa says that any commitment will be informed by the country's economic capacity to help.
Today, we reiterate South Africa's commitment to work with Zimbabwe in addressing the socio-economic challenges experienced by our two countries. We commend your new administration for all your efforts through your program of action to take Zimbabwe out of its current difficulties and make it a viable partner to South Africa, to the region, and other development partners. In support of your commendable efforts in February of this year at the World Economic Forum, South Africa made a clarion call to the international community to assist Zimbabwe and support the reform efforts that your government have embarked on by lifting the unfair and unjustified sanctions that have been imposed on Zimbabwe. We even addressed the European Union on a visit to Europe and made this specific call. We are pleased that the European Union heeded the call and in February 2019 decided yes, to lift sanctions on the current members of your administration. But we want much more than just that. We want to see meaningful support being given by international development partners to Zimbabwe, because Zimbabwe does deserve the support that the world can give.
That was President Cyril Ramaphosa a little bit earlier on today at the opening session of this BiNational Commission between South Africa and Zimbabwe. Our foreign editor, Sophie Mokoena, is there, and she joins us now from the capital. Sophie, thanks very much indeed. This is a very important BiNational Commission, particularly for Zimbabwe at a time that it's looking for friends. And South Africa, having such a long history with the country, perhaps looking to South Africa much more than anywhere else.
Yes, indeed. You know, the relations between the two countries dates back during exile years, and it is for that reason the two leaders did emphasize the fact that they want the relations to continue. But you know very well that Zimbabwe is currently facing serious economic challenges, and many people are looking forward to see how South Africa is going to assist Zimbabwe. Earlier on, President Ramaphosa indicated that South Africa stands ready to assist Zimbabwe, but as you have indicated, this will depend on what South Africa can afford. You know very well that we have our own challenges. The past 10 years has been very, very difficult on the economic front. And President Ramaphosa saying that we have to take that into consideration. But there's something that I noted from his comments earlier on, before and after, emphasizing the fact that much as South Africa is calling for lifting of sanctions and South Africa stands ready to assist, but the Zimbabweans themselves must find a way to address their own challenges. And these challenges, we know very well that they emanate from the political tension in this country. And President Ramaphosa making an example of South Africa, saying that after all the challenges in our own country, he took a decision to ensure that he consult with all stakeholders, starting with labor, business, government, ordinary South Africans, but also, I would guess, the political parties. And him saying that an inclusive approach is the only way that can assist Zimbabwe to be back on track again in terms of the economic growth. And earlier on, Peter, let me share this with you. During the exclusive interview with the finance minister of Zimbabwe, he indicated that he did have a discussion with our finance minister, Minister Tito Mboweni, in terms of how they can assist. And what I have observed is that the ministers of finance are working on a program to assist Zimbabwe. And when I listened to him carefully, he's talking about a similar approach that was taken by Botswana last week to say you support your business people who want to invest in Zimbabwe and therefore giving them guarantees, but they must go and raise funds from the commercial banks. You stand just as a guarantee. In other words, not giving money straight to government, but giving business money so that they can come and invest here, but they must raise capital from the commercial banks.
All right, so they're finding ways and areas in which they can cooperate. Has the political conversation been on the table at all? The opposition parties, are they anywhere in sight of this important gathering?
Not at all. This is government-to-government meeting. But I guess perhaps behind the scenes, telephone calls and perhaps meetings did happen. We are still trying to find out. But for now, what I can say is that it was government-to-government. But clearly, the political situation in Zimbabwe, definitely, I think it did come under spotlight. And yesterday, I spoke to the MDC leader, Nelson Chamisa. He has kind of toned down his rhetoric, talking about him ready to engage and to join the dialogue on condition there's an independent facilitator, but saying that person can be President Cyril Ramaphosa. Now, the technicality is that President Ramaphosa next year will be chairing the AU. And then secondly, you know very well that currently we are in the Security Council. So all these other burning issues that are before the Security Council and also before the AU, we have to deal with those issues. And therefore, being a facilitator, you also chair some of these important organs. It's going to be very difficult. You know that immediately after the General Assembly, President Ramaphosa will be the president of the Security Council for a month. Therefore, I think maybe President Ramaphosa will find someone who can assist him to deal with this political issue. But as I indicated, I find Chamisa completely different, contrary to your interview with him immediately after the elections. But one thing that he is firm on is that sanctions, yes, they are crippling the country, they are not good, but the political problems in this country are creating an environment where the international community continue to impose those sanctions. And therefore, he believes that should you resolve the political problems in Zimbabwe, automatically the issue of sanctions will be resolved. But President Ramaphosa was very frank, very forthright, very clear that sanction must go as of yesterday.
Sophie, can you give us any idea of the areas of cooperation that may have already seen some kind of agreement signed between South Africa and Zimbabwe at this BiNational Commission?
Well, they've added, I think, two that would involve agriculture, science and technology. And I think this emanates from what President Mnangagwa said when I asked him about the issue of whether they have agreed with South Africa in terms of that financial assistance. He indicated that they are not going to wait. They have a serious problem of sanctions, but that doesn't suggest that they can't do anything. And it is for that reason they have identified agriculture as a sector that can assist them to revive the economy. But the technicality there is that they don't have a technical capacity, they don't have skills, and they don't have capital. And it is for that reason I think that discussion around the two finance ministers and the Reserve Bank of South Africa and Zimbabwe will come handy on how they can perhaps assist Zimbabwe to have the necessary skills, the technology, but also finance to kickstart that agricultural program. And that's a new agreement South Africa and Zimbabwe signed.
All right, Sophie, perhaps as a final question, I know that you've only been there a few hours and not been able to see too much, but if you can compare away from the BiNational Commission itself, ordinary Zimbabweans, have you been able to get a sense of what they're saying about life for them at the moment? And I remember the last time we were there were queues outside banks, but we're told that that kind of thing isn't seen so much anymore.
Well, the queues are still there. Yesterday I saw the queues. But secondly, we visited the countryside just to get a sense of what ordinary Zimbabweans are saying and perhaps how are they coping. Also in town, in the central business, we did speak to some of the citizens of this country. You know what, Peter? They are tired of politics. They just want the economic growth so that they can have a better life. And I think for politicians to continue to fight, this is very, very unfair to ordinary Zimbabweans. They are willing to roll their sleeves to improve the country, but the politicians themselves, because they have a better platform and a better facility and interaction with international community, they want them back to the negotiating table to find a solution, a lasting solution to the problems or to this problem of Zimbabwe. But we even visited areas where we were just looking at what's happening there. We saw the areas where there are prospects of mining, and also we saw how ordinary Zimbabweans are working hard, particularly the small business, to ensure that there's life in Zimbabwe. And right now where I'm standing, it's the High Commissioner's office. We expect the gift of the givers to make an announcement with the Minister of International Relations, Minister Lindwe Sisulu, and Zimbabwean Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sibusiso Moyo. And we are waiting to see them come out and hear how is gift of the givers going to assist Zimbabweans, particularly in areas where they have experienced drought.
All right, Sophie, we're going to leave that there. Thanks very much indeed. That's our foreign editor, Sophie Mokoena, who's in Harare for the BiNational Commission between Zimbabwe and South Africa currently underway. And as she says, life still pretty difficult for the average Zimbabwean, whilst there's a few bank queues still there. Petrol queues, you know, have now subsided, but that's largely due because of the increase in the price of petrol there. So a lot of economic issues still need to be dealt with. Looking to South Africa for support, but President Ramaphosa saying we'll support you as far as we are economically able to do so.